Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a wet Singapore, where we are here for the NRRL Wednesday Super League. And what an 18 minutes we've got ahead of us in qualifying to decide the order for the 31-lap Grand Prix. My name is JP. I am your commentator. Always a pleasure to be here. And tonight, well, judging by qualifying, we have got quite the session on our hands. A rain-soaked Singapore qualifying. We did see little drops of rain in Singapore in the real F1 before the race on Sunday. Well, this is more than a few drops, I must say. And in the qualifying session, this is going to make for quite the interesting session and maybe a little bit of a shaken up grid. We've got Rendog, who'll be the first man to take to these wet streets here in Marina Bay. And this is going to be an awesome session, I must say. 16 minutes and 40 left of qualifying. We are expecting my brother Lewis to be joining us as well, but we've got a couple of people who are experiencing issues with invites and getting into the game. So hopefully we will get Lewis in soon. Seems to be a little bit of a glitch going on with invites and people not receiving invites and whatnot. But hopefully all of that is resolved. As we can see via Rendog's onboard, it looks quite difficult out there to get the car slowed down. And this will most certainly be a difficult session for the drivers, but one that will be very interesting for us, I must say. 15 minutes and 50 seconds left to go of qualifying. Saban retiring from the session immediately, which is quite interesting, I must say. That's obviously not an on-track crash, so retirement in the pits for Saban before even completing a lap. Rendog is just coming towards the end of the lap now, and a big lock up there for the Ferrari on his outlap. And he will have to hope there is less of that on his actual flying run. He will be the first man to set a lap as long as there's no invalidations for him. Gets through the final corner, so he will stick around with the Scarlet Red Ferrari as he makes his way through turn 1 and 2. And I mean, look how treacherous these conditions are. It really does not look easy at all for him, and even still sliding in 4th gear. You can just see the car wanting to wander a little bit wide and put Rendog under pressure very, very early on in this session. As he now comes to the next braking zone, and the first sector split, a 35-1. For the Ferrari driver. Now tips it in here. A lot of understeer in the Ferrari. The McLaren ahead of us gets out of the way. I'm sure he'll be very happy about that. Overtaken Abel, still wheel spinning in 4th gear is the Ferrari. It's not really looking hooked up for Rendog, as again they're very, very wide as he now comes across the Anderson Bridge. And it's really not wanting to slow down for him in the Ferrari. Rendog struggling in the conditions here. Very, very wet. And the Ferrari not working as Rendog would like. Normally, DRS would be enabled here, but obviously in a wet session, no DRS. That would be mighty too dangerous to do anything like that. As he now comes to where he locked up on his outlap. No similar troubles on his flying lap. Just one more corner to negotiate and he will have completed his lap, making sure he takes it nice and smoothly as to not cause any invalidation. It's a 47-8 for Rendog. Mikey is just coming towards the final sector now. 17-9 second sector split for the Haas driver. Mikey, you would imagine, will be up towards the front, as he is in absolutely every division of NRRL that he takes part in. One of 3 world champions that we currently have on the grid with us, those being Dan Lovett, Sab Gaming, and Mikey himself. Matt Connor goes to the top of the timesheets with a 46.5. Mikey only into second with a 47.5. We now turn our attention to I Have No Grip. Again, a man with a great turn of speed when he needs it. A little bit of a lock-up through there, but I don't imagine anything that will plague him massively. Taking it very, very tentatively is the Alpine, as he now comes round the final corner, and it's a 47.5 for I Have No Grip. Jamsey now goes to the top, about 3 seconds clear is Jamsey, so that's a great lap from the McLaren driver, who we saw take pole position, I believe it was yesterday, in Saudi Arabia, and immediately proving that he is up there once more. Race Chase and Sidemen go third and second respectively. 145.3 for Sidemen, reduces that deficit to just under 2 seconds, sorry. Dan Lovett now coming across the line. And it's not a great lap for Dan Lovett. A 46.2 puts in P3 for now, but I'm sure Dan will be willing that car on to do more. Falcon Warrior now rounding the final corner. 47.7 for Falcon Warrior. Big Bruiser has invalidated his lap. Hash is just going through the second sector now. Meldrum comes to the line, goes P12 with a 48.9. And Hash is off. I think he's just managed to avoid the wall. But the Mercedes driver running wide and just waiting for everyone behind to go past him. He's got to be careful that he doesn't get disqualified for parking in an illegal place. He's got one more car to go past him. Now can get a move on. And that's, I believe, just towards the Aniston Bridge. It is. And that shows you how difficult these conditions can be. I don't believe anyone else is on another lap. We've got Race Chase, who's on a lap. He's just coming towards the final corner. This will be his second lap on those tyres and does improve. Goes up to P2, sorry, with a 45.1. Mikey is on another lap as well, and is just coming through sector 2. Meloon slotted into P5 with a 146 flat. Race Chase still pushing on in the Sauber. Jamsey just behind him is also pushing on. Sidemen has invalidated his lap. I Have No Grip isn't on a lap. Meloon has invalidated. Dan's coming into the pits. Matt Connor is on a push lap. Mikey Boy is on a push lap. Falcon Warrior has invalidated his. Rendog isn't on a lap. So we'll turn our attention to Mikey, who we've already spoken about being one of the world champions. Now looking to see if he can place himself up further on the grid. Mikey rounds the final corner now. Currently P8. Where can the Haas driver go with this lap? Goes into P4 with a 45.4. Good improvement for him. Kevin Baker is now on a lap. One of 6 drivers to have not set a lap. That's not including Saban, who retired practically immediately in the pit lane. Might get a little bit held up here by the V-Carb as Jamsey goes even quicker, a 42.6. And again, seconds clear of the guys behind him. That is absolutely rapid. And I'm not sure, is that Sergeant Devsey? That is, who potentially is on a push lap, but that definitely won't have helped Kevin Baker's attempt, who rounds the final corner, goes P9. Sergeant Devsey went into P14 with a 1 minute 50.3. 4 drivers that are still left yet to set laps. We've got Sidemen who is on a lap, just coming through the first sector. We'll see his first sector split time, and it's a 7.5 improvement from Sidemen. So the intermediate tyres definitely lasting a while, and if you do multiple laps on them, you most certainly will benefit. There's a yellow flag in Sector 2. Is that for a Red Bull? I believe it might have been Meldrum who had just slowed down, or he's run out of fuel, sorry. We'll keep on board with Sidemen, and you can see the car sliding around, and you'd imagine that would lose you time, but in the wet, he is probably gaining a fair amount. Plenty of wheel spin for the Aston Martin driver as he now comes through towards the final sector. Saban says he's doing a last to first challenge. I mean, fair enough. Obviously, getting late in the season. Saban, I do believe you were a bit late to join, so not in the championship hunt. Definitely one of the quicker drivers, though. Why not have a bit of fun with it? At the end of the day, that is all F1 League Racing is, just a bit of fun. Sidemen goes into P2 with a 1:42.8. And I must say, Saban, I will be certainly checking. I believe there's about 6 minutes left, Mr. Gabe. I can't see because of the yellow flag. Yes, 6 minutes, 10 seconds left to go, my friend. We're on board with Fintinho, the Ferrari man, just coming across the Anderson Bridge in the second sector, slowing it right down as he comes through the hairpin. Well, no, Saban, I must say, I wish you the best of luck with your last to first challenge. Ah, Jabe! I did think there was a bit of a... What's the word? I can't think. A bit of a coincidence. But, chose not to say anything. But no, welcome to the stream, my friend. Hope your evening's going well. Fintinho now comes towards the final corner. Pushing flat out through the final corner. Standing on the loud pedal. Goes to P7 with a 45.3. Sidemen isn't on a lap. Race Chase doing yet another lap on these tyres. No, most certainly, Saban. And I must say, would provide some good entertainment. You know, a quick driver coming from the back trying to improve. I just hope for your sake it's not chucking it down with rain. Otherwise it might be a little bit more difficult. Race Chase comes around the final corner, improves by 1.5 seconds, but does not improve a position. It's a 42.9 for Race Chase. Stays P3. Dan Lovett is on another lap. He's just coming through the final sector now. Through the final corner comes the McLaren. It goes up to P4 with a 44.5. Good lap from Dan. Dinosaur invalidated his lap. Wizjokis is now on a lap, just coming through the final sector again. Maybe a little bit held up by the V-carb ahead of him. That will be Sergeant Devsey, who is actually going to dive into the pit lane. Wizjokis rounds the final corner now. Goes from P13 to P12 with nearly a 2-second improvement. And that is just testament to the drivers out there who are putting in laps. Rendog has displaced Dan Lovett for P4. Jamsey coming out on an out lap. And I must say, if I was any of the drivers currently out on the grid, I would be very, very scared watching Jamsey, but we will stick around with the McLaren, who's currently on provisional pole position. Going on to his flying lap now, and he's invalidated quite literally immediately. So, unfortunately for Jamsey, he will have to do another out lap. Doesn't look like any of the top 5 are on laps at the minute. Meloon looks to be on a lap and is just coming through the final sequence now. Elects to dive into the pit lane. Wizjokis on yet another lap. maybe looks like he's aborted this lap with Jokies. So we'll switch back to the top 5. Rendog is just going on to a lap. Race Chase is on a lap. So we'll stick around with the Sauber. Over the Anderson Bridge he comes and through the hairpin. Looking very, very wiggly for the Sauber. 2 minutes left of this qualifying session. Making use of short shifting, most certainly crucial in a session like this that is absolutely flooded with rain. And I don't think Race Chase has actually come into the pits once. I don't think I can actually check that, but 6 laps on those tyres, I don't think he has boxed at all, and goes to provisional pole with a 42.0. So Jamsey will need to find improvement. We'll look at Rendog, who's 2/10 up. That wouldn't gain him a position. Now he's a second up, though. Needs a little bit more improvement than that. But Rendog is improving by quite some distance. But he's gone very, very deep and straight into the wall. And for the Ferrari, that will most certainly be his session over. Just trying to brake late to gain all the time he could and nothing doing. Jamsey is 8/10 up, and that would be more than enough to take pole position back away from Race Chase. 34 seconds left of this session. He's now 2 seconds up, is Jamsey. And this is just an absolute masterclass to watch now as the McLaren comes through the final sector. And surely there is nothing that can get in his way. But the Williams ahead, going a little bit slowly. That didn't look like the ideal entry to that chicane that Jamsey would have wanted. But he rounds the final corner now. And surely Jamsey to pole again. It is to pole again. And look at the margin between himself and the Sauber. That is qualifying over with. Mikey will have the chance to try and improve. Kevin Baker has literally just got onto a lap at the perfect time. Hash is also, well, he's not on a lap, but managed to get up to P6. Kevin Baker isn't on a lap either. So now our attention really turns to Mikey, who was nearly 4/10 down in the first sector. Will need a massive improvement if he wants to try and take Jamsey's pole position away. He needs about a, well, what is that, a 3-second improvement through the final 2 sectors. And that is very, very deep out of the hairpin there. Definitely not the ideal line. 4/10 down now is Mikey, so it doesn't look like it will be an improvement. Sidemen is a 10th down as he now comes through the second sector. Matt Connor goes up to P2 with a 1:41.5. Great lap from the V-Carb man. Jabeson, Big Bruiser, and Dinosaur won't set a lap. We've got Sidemen, who's on his lap now. I don't believe Jamsey's on another lap. He's not. Sidemen now 2/10 up and very wiggly through there, though. And will that have lost him time? That is a crucial traction zone to try and gain time. He needs about an 8/10 improvement if he wants to displace Race Chase in third. And it is all going to come down now to the final corner. He is fighting and wrestling away with the steering wheel as Dinosaur goes into P5. Can Simon improve? He nearly spins out of the final corner. Still gains half a second. Gets to P4. Kevin Baker is on a lap. And that is your qualifying done. And over a second gap between pole position and second. They say rain is the great equalizer, and Jamsey, I'm absolutely speechless after a lap like that. Absolutely insane stuff from Jamsey to put it on pole position in conditions like that around a circuit of this nature. Absolutely incredible. And there is your classification then. Over a second that Jamsy is on pole. It is Matt Connor in second, Race Chase third with Sidemen fourth, Dinosaur fifth, Mikey in sixth, Fitinho in seventh, Kevin Baker in eighth with Hash ninth, Rendog 10th, Dan Lovett down in 11th, I Have No Grip 12th, Meldrum 13th with Falca Warrior 14th, Meloon 15th with Jokey 16th, Sergeant Devsey 17th, Saban 18th with Jabe Jabeson in 19th, and Big Bruiser in 20th. We will now take a look at the Drivers' Championship standings, where you can see the current Tier 1 leader, BP Ace, is the man at the top, but not here tonight. So Race Chase will definitely have an opportunity to try and gain some time. Good evening, Andy Price. Welcome to the stream, my friend. Hope your evening is going as well as it possibly can be. Hoping you will enjoy the action that we're bringing you here tonight. We'll now look to the calendar where we can see this is round 6, Singapore. We are really at the business end of the season now. And with tonight's race and then 2 rounds to go, those being in Hungary and Abu Dhabi at the Yas Marina circuit, points will now be absolutely massive. But we'll bring you back to the championships, and you can see the Tier 2 championship very, very close. Wiz Jokies on 88 points. It's Jabe Jabeson on 65 points, and then only a point behind that is Dan Lovett. Mikey said that he was blocked in turn 1 by Hash, which cost him 9/10 of a second. And in a session like that, that is crucial time. Commiserations, go out to you, Mikey. Is the race wet? I don't believe so. I can't see any rain on my screen. We'll bring you back to the live action. I can't see any rain. Whether there is rain forecast in the middle or the end of the race, I couldn't tell you. I'm going to quickly invite Lewis and see if I can get him in. But I can't say I see any rain on the horizon. If there's any drivers in chat and you can let us know if there is meant to be any rain, that would be absolutely wonderful. But as far as I can tell, doesn't seem like there's any coming our way, as we now line up on the grid for those fabled 5 red lights, and it is lights out. And away we go, and Jamsy gets away well from pole position. Matt Connor immediately comes across to try and cover off the Sauber, and Race Chase immediately falling back. Sidemen is up into 3rd with Dinosaur in 4th. It's Race Chase who is in 5th, and Mikey already looking to attack the Sauber. Fintinho is in 7th with Dan Lovett having a rocket ship start up into 8th. Kevin Baker is in 9th. Meldrum 10th as Rendog is now really falling back into the pack there. But all of them seem to be through cleanly. And in a 20-man grid, that is exactly what you want to see. But it is Jamsy that leads out in front from pole position. We've got a yellow flag at the back, and there's a massive crash at the back. Multiple cars involved, including Rendog. We've got Jabe Jabeson there. I Have No Grip also involved in the fight. As there's more contacts. Jabe Jabeson into the wall, and I Have No Grips put into the wall by the Sauber. Rendog managing to escape that without any damage. We've got more yellow flags going on at the back as Jabe Jabeson going very, very slowly with his damage. And we've got another yellow flag, and that is the Red Bull of Saban, the man looking to do a last to first challenge in this race. And Hash has also had some sort of mistake and is falling back. Sergeant Devsey with a poor exit out of the chicane. But just as I was saying, they were all getting through cleanly. Everything kicks off, and suddenly it's not so clean at all. But as we move on to lap 2, we've now got another yellow flag as I Have No Grip is out and the virtual safety car is deployed. And well, I most certainly think we needed that after all the chaos on the opening lap. Virtual safety car is out, and I can imagine we'll see a few drivers into the pits. Surely Jabe Jabeson into the pits with damage like that, you would imagine. And yes, cutting over the curbs to get into the pit lane. And look at the amount of drivers in the pit lane. Very, very busy down there as the virtual safety car ends and we can go racing once more. Out in front, Jamsey is just about a second ahead of Matt Connor. Dinosaur is in third place with Sidemen in fourth. Mikey is in fifth. Race Chase in sixth. And then they've got about a 3-second gap to Dan Lovett, who is in seventh. Finn Tinio is following him in behind. Kevin Baker is ninth. And I'm just receiving word that Lewis has been able to get in. So hopefully he will be joining us very soon in the commentary box. And it will definitely be quite the lore update for him, seeing what has happened. 1.2 second gap between the two leaders as we see Mikey managing to get past Sidemen. And we've got Meldrum out of the session. And now the full course caution is thrown as the safety car is deployed. And Meldrum crashing at a very odd place, I must say. I can't say I know how that one was caused. But suddenly, the commentary booth door has opened and Lewis has arrived. Welcome in. Good evening, Lewis.
Hello. Yeah, my apologies to everyone for that. I'm not quite sure what happened, but we are here now. So, what's happened so far then?
Let me give you a brief rundown. So qualifying was wet, and Jamsey took pole by over a second. The race start was then all good, all clean, until I said it was clean, and then there was about a 5-car crash involving I Have No Grip, Jabe Jabeson, I believe Rendog was involved, I Have No Grip was involved, then I Have No Grip crashed out, bringing out the virtual safety car. Then there was a crash with Saban, who's doing a last to first challenge, and he went round, he's now 17th. Then Meldrum crashed out on the straight, which has now caused the full safety car to be deployed, and half of the grid has come into the pits for new tyres. So, quite the chaotic start, but under the safety car, that gives us a chance to look back at what we've got, get you updated, and kind of settle down a bit. But crucially out in front, Jamsey doesn't look like anyone can hold a candle to him. Had a 1.2 second gap at the time that the safety car was called. The McLaren driver looking as dominant as McLaren have all season long.
Yeah, well, from what you've explained there, he very much seems like he is showing the field a thing or two about Singapore here. So the interesting thing now will be with how, as you've explained, dominant he's been so far. Can he keep that up when the safety car peels in? But I've only just seen you say all that happened, and this is only 3 laps in.
Yes, this is only lap 3, yes.
Wow.
It's been quite the chaotic start, but I must say Jamsey has seemed like a man on a mission. And as much as I don't want to commentators curse him, it doesn't really look like there's anyone or anything that can stop the McLaren driver tonight. We've got some jostling for position under the safety car. I don't quite know what's going on with my timing towers. Sidemen comes into the pits for a change of front wing and a fresh set of the hard compound tyres. 31 laps this Grand Prix is. We are on lap 4 under the safety car after Meldrum crashed out down the straight after the Anderson Bridge, which I'm still trying to figure out how that actually happened, because it was quite a way down the straight. I know the wall protrudes a little bit, but I can't say I've ever seen anyone crash there, so quite an interesting incident there. But no, I must say I'm quite glad that the safety car's been called, because there was so much carnage going on, I didn't really know where to look.
Yeah, it can be one of the most frustrating things is when all the chaos happens at once, not really able to cover everything. So hopefully that gives the drivers a bit of a warning that you can't take certain risks around here, and that they're going to need to kind of rein it in the next time around.
Singapore, obviously, a very difficult circuit, and while they might not have the challenges of the heat as the real-life F1 drivers have had this past weekend, they will certainly have the challenges of keeping it within the track limits and out of the walls, as the safety car will be called in this lap, and Jamsey will negotiate his first of what I imagine will not be his last safety car restart of the evening. Normally a 100% chance of a safety car around this circuit. This is the first time that I've ever commentated around this circuit. Definitely one of my personal favourites on the calendar. And I must say, Dinosaur under the safety car looking very, very racy, almost egging Jamsey to get on with it. Nearly pushing him through that chicane. The Williams driver not wanting to waste a second of this Singapore Grand Prix. And Jamsey has gone then. So into the final corner we go. And Dinosaur can lay chase to our race leader. Lap 5 of 31 of this Grand Prix. Falca Warrior picks up a 3-second time penalty. And we're nearly going 4 wide into turn 1 there between Sidemen, Falca Warrior, Hash and Saban. Jabe Jabeson is also on the back of that party, and Saban will definitely be a driver to watch coming through the back of the field, looking to gain positions, as we've got a couple of cars wheel to wheel. We've got Mikey and I believe that's Big Bruiser going wheel to wheel. Sergeant Devsey's also in there, and Mikey with a lovely little switchback on Bruiser, who ran a little bit wide there. And there you see the V-carb of Matt Connor just brushing against the wall, managing to escape without any damage. But Mikey boy putting the moves on quite early, already up to 8th.
And that could have been very much worse for Matt Connor there. A slight tap on the wall. We've seen it before countless times, and he's very lucky to get out of that one with, I don't believe, any damage. But even if he did, that could have been, as we say, much, much worse. So he continues on. But Mikey must be looking at that, licking his lips, knowing that he will have a very strong chance to move himself up here and try and get himself back to where he started.
I must say, Dan Lovett with a rocket ship start. Yes, he's not pitted, but I believe started 11th on the grid, up to 4th. But look at the gap that Jamsey has pulled immediately, 2.4 seconds. And while I was saying that Dinosaur looked racy under the safety car restart, that's about as racy as he's looked. 2.6 seconds and growing is that gap between Jamsey and Dinosaur. And Jamsey looking like a man possessed tonight, as Dinosaur running very wide there, lucky to escape without damage. But here comes Race Chase on the inside, and very suddenly backing out of it, and that's going to allow Dan Lovett to try and go down the outside. Nothing doing for the McLaren, but Race Chase very quickly backing out of that one, and I can't really see why.
Long game, I think. We've seen Astro on board with Race Chase, as I have been for most of the lap, making mistakes, and you don't want to get caught up in the middle of one of them. That can take both of you out. So Race Chase maybe just playing the long-term game here. Still 25 laps to go, but this could slow down his chances of victory. But at this current point, I don't think there's many drivers that will have a chance at victory unless Jamsey was to crash.
Most certainly that. He looks absolutely rapid, Jamsey, and massive confidence in the car to just do absolutely whatever he wants, and belief in the car that it will live with it. Race Chase with the DRS is gaining on Dinosaur, but not looking for a move there. Dan Lovett is right behind him. We've got a yellow flag at the back, and that is for Hash and Sidemen, I believe, who are both into the wall. Sidemen without a front wing, as is Hash. And I must say, I'm surprised that hasn't at least called the virtual safety car, as we see Meloon managing to get past Mikey into turn 1, up into 8th. Meloon with a little bit of a snap on the exit there in his pursuit of Matt Connor. Race Chase just a little bit further behind Dinosaur than he was at the last occasion, but is gaining towards the next left-hander. Nothing doing for him, though. And there you can see Fitinho and Matt Connor doing battle. Fitinho in the Ferrari, round the outside, now turns to the inside. And Matt Connor running a little bit wide. That's so close to contact there between the pair of them. And Matt Connor, great defensive driving, managing to hold that position. But I do believe he's picked up damage in that defense when he snagged the wall.
I'm still taking a look at this race chase hunt for second. He is close. He will have DRS. Still mistakes being made. Still on the back. Can he manage to get through here? Here we go then. Oh, that could have been much, much worse. He's kept that out of the barriers. But that could have been race ending, and he will have seen his race flash before his eyes there.
I must say, Race Chase, take a bow, young man, to save that while still keeping the throttle on, still having the DRS enabled. That takes some amount of guts, and how that Sauber didn't end up in the wall, I will never know. Incredible racing IQ from Race Chase, and the confidence. It reminds me of Max Verstappen last year in Abu Dhabi on his qualifying lap, when everyone was convinced he was going into the pit wall and he still pinned the throttle and managed to hold it. How he did that, I'll never know. And how Race Chase managed to hold that is another question. Incredible stuff. And I would have thought I was watching the Rally World Championship then, not a Formula 1 car. But not only managing to save it, managing to keep the car in third. As we've got a yellow flag, and I believe that's for Hash, who's in the runoff area. And taking off his front wing, trying to execute his best Mahavir Raghunathan impression, it seems like, with a 3-point turn. Again with no front wing. I believe he's just been into the pits to repair that front wing, no? So, not an ideal start for Hash. And he's intentionally crashed out. Okay, then. Quite a interesting end to the Singapore Grand Prix for Hash.
Not exactly what you want to see. Race Chase was able to get alongside, but had to back out. And oh, he's pitting.
Safety car deployed. Safety car deployed. And that has come out at a horrible time for Jamsey, who, obviously being so far ahead, had gone past the pit entry by the time that everyone else had got to it. So Dinosaur's been able to come in. Race Chase has been able to come in. Dan Lovett has stayed out and is... Oh no, I'm evidently lagging because Dan Lovett is in the pits. You would imagine Jamsey will probably be in at the end of this lap. He overtook the safety car, but I guess was allowed to. And surely Jamsey will be in at the end of this lap. But that is horrible timing for him. And I must say, if you are looking at NRRL for the first time, I can assure you, crashing intentionally is against the rules. And that will be punished. Do not worry. But that safety car could pay dividends to this race. And Jamsey may have a little bit of a challenge after all.
Certainly something you would like to see. You wouldn't want to see him run away with it. But that has, as you say, come at a very, very interesting time. Had that been called 10 seconds earlier, that would have been ideal.
Exactly that. He's now... Jamsey is just cruising up to the back of Jabe Jabeson. And surely the McLaren into the pits. He is diving into the pit lane. You would imagine that'll be hard compound tyres. Matt Connor is also coming into the pits. And the question is now, will Jamsey lead this race? I believe he will, because Wiz Jokies is also coming into the pits. So Jamsey onto the hard compound tyres, you would imagine, will emerge still in the lead of this race. No, he won't, because Wiz Jokies has decided to stay out, take the track position, And I mean, if he was trying to dummy anyone, he most certainly dummied me, because I was absolutely convinced that Haas was coming in for a pit stop.
Yeah, I would have thought so too. It would have made sense, but track position can be very, very critical around here, but I don't really see what the benefit of that is.
Falca Warrior also stayed out, and he's ahead of Jamsey as well. And I must say, while it might not benefit people like Wiz Jokies or Falca Warrior, this definitely benefits the race as an entirety. Because Jamsey was looking like he was going to run away with this one, but now with a couple of cars ahead of him, and Dinosaur right behind him, maybe we will be treated to a battle for the lead. Matt Connor and we've got a car off there under the safety car, and that's Kevin Baker. And that's why I saw cars jumping up and down our timing sheets. Big damage for the pink and blue liveried Alpine. Now down in P10, and you would imagine we'll have to come back into the pits. A very odd incident under the safety car there.
You would certainly expect so. He wouldn't get very far with half a front wing around a track like this, but stranger things have happened.
Well, I'm sure he'd get very far, but just not very quickly.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree there. I don't think that would be quite a race-winning strategy.
No, I mean, if he managed to stay out with that damage and somehow come from P10 to win the Grand Prix, I think I would do some pretty questionable things. But the less said about
Maybe in
that, the
Vegas
better.
or Monza.
Andy Price saying in the chat, Hash has to get banned for that, surely. I doubt banned, but there definitely will be repercussions. Put it this way, I was intentionally taken out in a race on Friday, and the man's only got a 3-month ban. So, make of that what you will, because Hash hasn't tried to take anyone out. So I would imagine probably a qualifying ban, or something off the top of my head. But if intentionally crashing into another driver is only a 3-month ban, I can imagine intentionally crashing into a barrier probably isn't that harsh. Lap 11 of 31. Sorry, you were saying this?
I will say, even though they're not teammates, somebody crashing out to cause a safety car intentionally around Singapore, I feel like I've heard this story before.
I'm pretty sure this script was written many a year ago, and it seems that Hash and potentially Wiz Jokies have cracked it out once more.
Yeah, what a bizarre turn of events.
I think I'm getting deja vu here.
Yeah, I think I know how this story goes. We'll see you next year.
Very interesting. Yeah, we'll see you next year when this is brought to the World Motorsport Council, and we'll see how this race pans out. But 20 more laps of this Singapore Grand Prix to go, and I mean, for it to go to the World Motorsport Council, we'll have to see who wins this one out. But very interesting. Andy Price saying that he tried to do it 3 times and failed. Very interesting. I don't know why you'd want to intentionally take yourself out of a race. I don't really see the point of it. You know, there's still a long way to go in this race, even if you have had a bit of a nightmare start. Still plenty you can do with it, and if you do want to retire, feel more than welcome to come into the pits and retire. But anyway, the less said about that incident, the better. Lap 12 of 31 of this Singapore Grand Prix, and it is with Jokies that leads under the safety car from Falca Warrior and Jamsey. And Lewis, I'm going to pass this to you. Is there anyone that can stop Jamsey tonight?
I believe one person, and that is Jamsey, can stop himself. But again, I don't think that would be quite the strategy to win the race, which I believe is what Jamsey wants to do.
Most certainly. Well, at least we can say he's not getting a Grand Slam. So it can't be that bad domination. We've heard many whisperings of drivers being too quick in this Super League and whatnot. Well, maybe we've got a new entrant for you in the form of Jamsey, who, under the lights here tonight, has seemed absolutely unstoppable, which I don't think I've said for anyone else, which goes without saying that that is quite the statement. Saban, in his quest for a last to first challenge, currently sat in P12 for Red Bull, 4-lap old hard compound tyres. Had that little incident on lap 1, actually exactly right here as he goes across the Anderson Bridge. But I am going to pose you a question, Lewis, as the safety car's in this lap. If you are someone like Saban, who is trying to do a last to first challenge around Singapore street circuit, of all tracks, what is going through your head?
I think you've just got to kind of, there's still 19 laps or 18 laps when we cross the line to go. You've just got to try and stick with someone. Obviously, DRS trains can be bad in NRRL and around Singapore, but you just need to try and jump a couple at the start and then slowly pick them off one at a time. Make sure your strategy is right, and even though you might not win the race, you'd certainly be scoring some good points from where you started. So you can't get too ahead of yourself.
Most certainly that. Wiz Jokies has gone very, very late just as they cross the line, but manages to retain that lead. Falcon Warrior retains second. Dinosaur is putting Jamsey under a little bit of pressure, and there's big contact there between Dan Lovett and Matt Connor. Dan diving down the inside and absolutely slamming into the side of the V car, barging him out of the way, almost reminiscent of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri just mere days ago. Mikey now looking to come at Dan Lovett and making his way through on the inside. Dan is going to hold it round the outside and manages to get the position back. While we were watching that, Falcon Warrior has been passed by Jamsey, and the man that has looked absolutely possessed so far during this event is now only one position away from where he's been for basically the entire thing. Saban is up into 10th place, and here's Jamsey. Is he going to throw it down the inside? No, he's going to run it a little bit wide, try and get the better traction on the hard compound tyres, almost pushing Jokies on the exit to the outside. He elects to go. Is this going to be a change for the lead? Yes, it is. Jamsey round the outside, and it took him about half a lap to do it, but Jamsey moves back up into the lead of this race, and now we've got Dan Lovett and Mikey wheel to wheel once more into the next chicane. Dan Lovett will have the outside. That now turns to the inside. Mikey holds it round the outside. Is this a position gained for the Haas driver? It is. And Mikey is up to 7th. And Rendog is going to compound Dan Lovett's issues with a poor exit out of the final corner. Rendog up into 8th. Dan Lovett down to 9th. And Mikey making even more moves, now up to 6th as he passes Matt Connor.
It isn't the result we wanted to see one lap after the safety car, to be honest. 2 seconds out in front already, but you do have to just appreciate the ability that we are seeing on display here, because he is just showing the field an absolute lesson.
We've got a massive crash towards the back of the field. Race Chase is involved. I believe there was a Ferrari involved, and we've got even more contact. And that's Kevin Baker who's involved in that. We've got Fitinho involved in that. Jabeson involved. Sidemen's involved. I believe Bruiser may have been involved as well. And we've got a virtual safety car deployed. It was incredibly hard to keep up with what was going on back there, as it seemed like almost half the field was involved in those collisions. There was 2 separate incidents there, all occurring at practically the same time. Jabeson went off into the runoff. Fitinho's got damage. I believe Race Chase has damage. Kevin Baker's got a 10-second penalty for a severe collision with Falcon Warrior. Sidemen was involved in that. I believe Bruiser was involved in that. Looks like Meloon's got damage, as has Kevin Baker, and Meloon's actually gone straight into the back of Kevin Baker as we get to green flag running once again. Both of these cars with massive damage as we go into the chicane now. Meloon manages to get the position, but you'd imagine both of them into the pits. And it looks like Mikey was involved in that as well, as he's diving into the pits with a damaged front wing.
Not what you want to see on a racetrack. Gives us something to talk about, but that is not the desired outcome with just how many were involved there. Very frustrating for all of them, but obviously very likely to happen around Singapore. Devseed spins out under very little to no pressure. Luckily, I managed to catch that right as it happened. And that is half a front wing gone. That'll be a trip into the pit lane, I believe. You'd expect so. And that has turned his race upside down too.
I must say, I'm intrigued to see how Mikey was involved in either one of those two incidents. A man who was really putting on a spectacle for us and making moves absolutely everywhere he went, and seemed quite far ahead of those collisions, was evidently involved somewhere. He manages to get past Falcon Warrior into 13th place. The Aston is going to try and fight that, but nothing doing for him, as we've got changes for positions as Dan Lovett loses out to Saban and Matt Connor. And Saban up to 6th. We know Saban, one of the very quick drivers in the Wednesday Super League, doing a last to first challenge. Lap 16, he's up to 6th and make that 5th as Matt Connor dives into the pits. And I believe we've also got Wiz Jokies into the pit lane. We have. That'll promote Saban to 4th. And if we look at the gap to leader, it's 11 seconds, the gap. But if anyone can bring that down, it's Saban. The only real downfall of Saban that I've seen is Saban. We've seen him up there normally fighting with BP Ace, who obviously isn't here today. But a few little driver errors and mistakes can normally cost him. But on his day, Saban, absolutely rapid. So if he can just try and get into that groove and hone his craft, he will most certainly be in the fight with Jamsey. 4 seconds is the gap out in front. We've got Sergeant Devsey and Kevin Baker into the pits for new front wings. And Saban is already gaining on the back of Rendog, who is on the medium compound tyres. So you'd imagine Saban at this stage of the race will probably be quicker. Doesn't look like he's going to be close enough to go for it here. But I am going to pose a question. No, I was going to pose a question, but Rendog has gone straight on and into the wall. And Saban, with the easiest pass of his life, as Rendog surely going to have to come in for a new front wing after that. And I mean, we saw his struggles in qualifying, locking up and going into the barriers. And those mistakes maybe not ironed out as much as he would have liked. And the Ferrari diving into the pit lane for a new front wing.
Again, very easy to make these mistakes in Singapore, but if you want to win the race, you have to do what our Jamsey is doing, and that is making none of them. And that is what will win you the race. Not even driving amazingly, which our Jamsey is of course doing, but just flat out not making errors can score you big points.
Now I will pose you that question, Lewis, that I was going to bring to you before that crash for the Scarlet Red Ferrari of Rendog, who has retired from the session in the pit lane. If you are Jamsey and you can see the threat of Saban behind gaining on you, you know how quick he can be. Are you a little bit nervous as you can see the Red Bull starting to grow a bit closer? Or are you confident that you're able to continue on, lead this race, and ultimately take what would be a dominant victory?
I think if you're in his position, you've been doing everything you need to do so far. Clearly nobody is able to match the consistency, so just keep it up, and you've got 14 laps left until you take that victory.
Closest battle on track at this current moment is between Falcon Warrior and Meloon. 2-lap hold hards for the Aston Martin, 9-lap hold hards for the Williams, so you would imagine that Falcon Warrior will be through relatively soon, definitely being held up by the Williams, you would imagine. They've got Mikey ahead of them, who is gaining on Matt Connor, both of them on 8-lap worn hard compound tyres. And Mikey is just reeling that gap in. Falcon Warrior still not close enough to try and make a move, but is bringing that gap down more and more. Jabeson is right on the back of Sidemen. This is the battle for 5th place, and you'd imagine with 12-lap-old mediums, Jabeson would really be struggling, but it doesn't seem like it as they make their way towards the left-hander. A little bit of contact down the straight, and Jabe isn't able to get his way past. Sidemen with valiant defense, keeping ahead. He does have damage. Wiz Jokies manages to get past Big Bruiser and up into 7th place. Is Falcon Warrior gaining enough on Meloon to try and make a move? He has a sniff down the inside, but realises he's too far back and doesn't want to make the lunge. Smart driving from the Aston Martin. And Jabeson, still in his pursuit of Sidemen, doesn't look close enough at this current moment, but is most certainly reeling him in.
And that's sometimes all you need to do is just let somebody know you are there, and the results could very much come soon, whether that's him making a move or forcing a mistake. Oh, he's pitting.
Well, I must say, 12 laps on those medium tyres. I wouldn't have thought they'd be performing well at all, but he was doing enough to keep up with his Sidemen. But coming in to the pits now, as we've got a change for 2nd place, as Saban goes round the outside of Dinosaur. 9.6 seconds the gap to leader, but Saban now has clear track in front of him to try and gain on Jamsey. And is this going to be the battle for the lead that we have so dearly wished for? Or does Jamsey have it under control?
I would very much think so. With how much he's extending that gap, it does not look like anyone is on the same level as him.
Big Bruiser currently in 9th. A little mistake there. Just sees him drop back from the back of Matt Connor, who's got Mikey just ahead of him. Now a 6.8 seconds gap ahead of Mikey to his teammate Wiz Jokies. And the gap's all a little bit spread out now as we see Meloon right on the back of Big Bruiser and looking to go round the outside at a very unconventional place and really showing the barrier. Big Bruiser saying if you want to overtake, that's where you're going. And there's contact there and Big Bruiser is round. Just on the exit of the Anderson Bridge into the hairpin. And whether that was contact between drivers or contact with the wall, I am not sure. But 10 laps on those soft tyres, you would imagine they are screaming to come into the pit lane. And big damage for Bruiser as he now goes into the barrier again and just picks up a little bit more damage. And surely into the pits at the end of this lap.
And Astro not having the nicest of times out there in P3, making a lot of mistakes, nearly went round at the 1 and 2 complex, managed to keep it on the right part of the track, but he's very much fighting that Williams, and it is not really working out for him.
Lewis, I just want to bring your attention to something. Since Dinosaur was passed by Saban, the gap between the Red Bull and the McLaren has come down by a second. He passed him a lap ago. If Saban keeps up this speed, in 8 laps' time, he will be with the McLaren driver. As we've got Meloon, who's round just through the beginning of the 2nd sector. But that gap is tumbling between the two leaders. And Jamsey might have competition after all.
And if you're Jamsey, you would have to fancy yourself anyway, given the pace you've shown already. Saban, having come through the field, he will back himself. We could be on for a very, very interesting final few laps here.
8.1 seconds is the current gap between them, and just as I said the gap was coming down, it now looks like it's starting to stagnate a bit around the 8-second marker. 10 laps to go in this race, and Saban, I don't think he's got as much time as he's going to need to try and gain to the back of that McLaren. And the gap is just beginning to even itself out now. He gained a lot on that last lap. Maybe he was just using all the battery he had, because now, not with much battery, is the Red Bull driver not really gaining any time.
And that will be a sigh of relief for the race leader, knowing that gap hasn't really moved in the last lap. Gives him an extra bit of motivation. He might just hold on to this, because I don't think he would have been bothered about the gap coming down. It's how quickly it was that panic would have set in. But he is still very much pulling away from third place, so if he cannot get second, sorry, if he cannot win the race, he's at least getting second.
Mikey is right on the back of Matt Connor. This is the battle for 6th. Haas versus V-Carb, and the Haas looking very, very quick as we enter lap 22. They've got Dan Lovett for company as well, who's on new medium tyres. So Dan surely looking best placed, but running straight into the side of Mikey. And we've seen Dan Lovett already do that once this race. Evidently taking lessons from Lando Norris. Slam into the side of him at turn 1 and you'll get the move done. But not working for Dan Lovett there. And Mikey is now going to attack Matt Connor. And he makes the move up into 6th place. But Dan Lovett, with the better grip, doesn't seem like he's got the head though. It's again a desperate move from Dan Lovett. Sees him sent into the wall. Big damage for the McLaren driver, and surely will have to come into the pits. Desperation creeping in for him, and we've got Falco Warrior out of the session, and that is a genuine crash into the wall for the Aston Martin. How the safety car's not being called for that, I really do not know. But for Dan Lovett, all he had to do was bide his time on the newer tyres. So I'm not sure what's made him lose his head there, but into the wall. And surely into the pit lane at the end of this one.
It could be, again, that desperation. We've seen the rough last 6 weeks of form he's had in the top divisions. He's gone even wider, again, straight on. Is this going to be him out of the race? Carries on. Bit of rear wing damage there, potentially. I heard the smack into the wall. And you can't really take risks around here with overtakes, because if they backfire, you're straight into the wall. He tries to come to the pits. He will manage to get in. 10-second penalty as well for speeding in the pit lane. And this... Oh, he's out.
Dan Lovett retiring in the pit lane. And I mean, you can't blame him after a lap 22 like that. Not what you would want at all. Dinosaur now is right on the back of Sidemen and almost pushing him through the Anderson Bridge. Is he going to go for it down the inside in the Anderson Bridge? He's going to look for a wider exit to get the better traction. Now pulls towards the outside. DRS is enabled. Surely this will be move done for the Williams driver. Sidemen is going to try and hang in there, and there's contact between the pair of them. Dinosaur sent into the wall because of it. And surely that is damage. That is damage, yes, for Dinosaur. Sidemen is still looking to fight this one. 17 lap old tyres for the Aston Martin. And Dinosaur will definitely feel hard done by with the contact like that, giving him damage. But manages to gain the position back up into the podium places. And that gap between Saban and Jamsey, it's like every time I take my eyes off of it, it comes down. But as soon as I look at it, it stagnates again. Now 6.5 seconds. But I just get the feeling he hasn't got the amount of laps remaining to be able to make a move.
Very much feels like it could be a case of he'll catch him, but maybe not have enough time to get past him.
Race Chase is right on the back of Fintinho. This is the battle for 9th. Sauber versus Ferrari, both powered by Ferrari engines, but Race Chase looking much quicker at this stage of the race. He pulls to the outside with the DRS. Fintinho will fight this, runs a little bit wide in the battle, and we've got a car off there. And who is that? I can't tell. Is that Sergeant Devsey who's off? It is Sergeant Devsey, who's currently the last of the current runners and in 13th. Cuts across the chicane, doesn't have a front wing on that V-carb, and you would imagine that is his race over with, as we've got a yellow flag, and again it is Sergeant Devsey just struggling to make his way through with that lack of front wing. Race Chase still trying to make a move on Fintinho. His next opportunity will be into this next chicane. Fintinho just tags the wall. Race Chase is beginning to gain. Looks towards the outside. Doesn't manage to make his way through. As we see Dan Lovett leave the session after, by his standards, I would imagine, quite a poor session. But it does seem like that was mainly just driver error on the McLaren driver's part. He will look to bounce back in his next races. Closest battles on track so far, well, the closest battle is between Race Chase and Fintinho for 8th place now, as Matt Connor has come into the pits. Is it second time lucky for Race Chase? He now chooses the inside line. And is that move done for the Sauber? Yes, it is, up into 8th.
He will very much not be pleased with where his race has gone, given where it was, but it is the sign of, I would think, a mature driver as Jabeson retires.
And that's into the
Oh dear!
hairpin out of the Anderson Bridge. And again, how that isn't a safety car. FIA, are you watching the same race as I am?
That is quite bizarre.
I will never know how that isn't a safety car. That is absolutely extraordinary. What Mohammed Ben Sulayem is thinking in that, I will never know. Very, very weird. Lap 26 of 31 of this Singapore Grand Prix, and it has provided a hell of a lot of chaos. And Jamsey has stood tall of that chaos and does look like he is going to come home for a first Singapore Grand Prix victory. And I believe this is the first Singapore Grand Prix that has been ran in NRRL. Chaos ridden, but also incredible racing from some of these drivers. And Jamsey has never looked under threat, has he, Lewis?
No, he has been just, as I say, a level above the rest of the field, and that is what wins you races. Not making mistakes and having just a raw pace. When you can link that up together, that's what scores you the points.
Exactly that. And Jamsey maybe looking for a late season championship charge. We know that we are really in the business end of this season. 2 rounds to go after this race is finished. And Jamsey, even if he's not in the championship fight this season, looking to prove that he is a force to be reckoned with come next season.
Very much so. This puts out a statement to the rest of the field. If he can keep this pace or be around similar pace, he's certainly one that will have an assault on the title next year.
I can't help but agree with that. That is for sure. Lap 27 of 31. Matt Connor sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. On those fresh soft compound tyres. A lot of drivers coming in for soft compound tyres now. And I must say, what a chaotic race this has been. It's been quite hard to keep up with it. I must say, I'm ready for bed after this race. It's been absolute carnage up and down the field. I mean, one more retirement from this Grand Prix, and we will have had half the drivers that took part in this session fail to reach the flag.
Very much so, but this is what you get around Singapore. Me and you have both been here plenty of times, and this is what you normally see.
Most certainly that. A very difficult circuit, as Fintinho most certainly proves that, and runs wide into the wall, picking up damage in his attempt to get past Kevin Baker. Doesn't look like there's a move on yet, but there is contact between the pair of them, and Fintinho barges his way through. I'm sure that will be looked at by the stewards after this one. Closest battle on track is between Wiz Jokies and Sidemen. Wiz Jokies looking to gain on the Aston Martin. 22 laps that Sidemen has been on those tyres. Mikey sets the fastest lap of the race in his pursuit of Matt Connor. Is there going to be a gap for Wiz Jokies to look down the inside of Sidemen? Doesn't look like there is. Sidemen placing that car exactly where it needs to be. But Wiz Jokies, with 10 laps difference in their tyres, surely will be passing that Aston Martin soon.
You would certainly expect so, but if Sidemen can just keep him behind, that'd be a very, very impressive performance. He's done well. He's always seemingly been around that kind of area, so that consistency we talk about, that's going to score him some good points tonight.
If we look to the penalties, we've got Dinosaur, who's on 6 seconds. Sidemen is on 3 seconds. Then Fintinho on 9 seconds. Kevin Baker has 10 seconds, with Meloon on 3 seconds. So I must say, props to all the drivers tonight for not picking up as many penalties as we would usually see in NRRL. And hopefully that is a trend that continues to live on. Sidemen just a little bit wide out of the final corner, and Wiz Jokies is gaining on the Aston Martin towards turn 1. Is there a gap down the inside? Just thinking about playing the long game. 2 laps to go in this race, and technically doesn't actually have to pass the Aston Martin due to his penalty. But you would imagine he will have a great chance of trying to get past down this next straight. He is gaining. He's got the ERS. He's got the DRS. He is going to look towards the inside of the Aston Martin. There is contact once again as they go into the corner, and both of them go wide. But Wiz Jokies does manage to get the move done. And as much as he did it off the track, I would have to say that's fair game, because it was Sidemen that put him there. Mikey manages to get his way past Matt Connor and shows you how you do that a little bit more neatly into, I believe that's turn 4. And Mikey up into 7th place, as Saban is going to come into the pit lane. And you would imagine he's seen that he isn't going to be able to complete the last to first challenge. So we'll come into the pits to try and nick the fastest lap just for the bragging rights.
Probably, yeah, maybe a little sign of some games between them for the next few rounds, that if these two are going to be at the top, that Saban will probably be thinking, you might have won this one, but you haven't won the war yet, shall we say. But go on board with any one of the drivers. Mr. JP, are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Oh my word, is that rain that I'm seeing?
It's not going to be enough, obviously, for the drivers to pit, but this could have a little bit of an impact. The track will get just that little bit greasier.
I did ask
And this,
Mikey if there was going to be rain, and he said yes. And I completely took it as a joke. I didn't expect it after qualifying. I thought the clouds had completely dispersed themselves, and we were in for a dry race. And while I do wish that the rain had come a little bit beforehand, maybe 5 or 6 laps ago, just to throw some chaos in the works, could we see some late drama in this one, as we are on the final lap of this race and Jamsey is on course to take a very, very dominant win, and one of the most dominant wins we've ever seen in NRRL. Saban, though, will he be able to get that fastest lap? Because the rain is beginning to come down in Singapore.
it very much doesn't look like he would be able to. But that would be, we're talking about him trying to put a statement out. That would be some statement if he was still able to do it anyways.
Most certainly. But I mean, can you make a bigger statement than Jamsey has tonight? He has led he's led every racing lap. If he hadn't have come into the pits when he did under the safety car, it could have been a Grand Slam for him. But the McLaren driver, almost looking as dominant as the real-life McLarens were at the start of the season. Jamsey, we've seen how quick he can be, and after the heartbreak of last night of taking pole position so dominantly and not converting it to a win, he is going to right that wrong in his mind tonight as he comes round the final corner, and the first ever Singapore Grand Prix in NRRL goes to Jamsey, and he wins the Singapore Grand Prix. Saban will be the man to come home for second place. And will he get the bragging rights of the fastest lap? He's just coming through the final little chicane now. You can hear the fireworks going off for Jamsey. There's still a 30-odd second gap back to Saban, obviously contributed by Saban pitting, as he now comes around the final corner to take second, doesn't manage to get that fastest lap. It is Dinosaur who will come home for the final podium place. Wiz Jokies will finish in 4th after his battle with Sidemen, who will fall, I believe, behind Race Chase with his penalty. Mikey will finish in 7th and is going to try and have a late race charge on the back of Race Chase. Won't be able to gain the position with his penalty, but will certainly push him to the line just in case of a mistake. Although a big slide there for Mikey will ensure that is where he finishes. Wiz Jokies does come across the line in 4th. Sidemen will cross the line in 5th, but Race Chase will take that position. Sidemen will finish 6th with Mikey in 7th, and Matt Connor will finish in 8th. Well, what a race that was under the lights here in Singapore. Absolute drama all throughout from the moment that the green light said go in qualifying to the checkered flag in the race. Absolute chaos. And there is your classification. It is Jamsey that wins the Singapore Grand Prix from Saban in 2nd from 18th on the grid. Dinosaur finishes in 3rd with Wiz Jokies in 4th, also from 16th on the grid. Great drive from the Haas. It is Race Chase who finishes in 5th with Sidemen in 6th. Mikey finishes in 7th with Matt Connor in 8th. Meloon 9th and Fintinho 10th with Kevin Baker in 11th with, and get ready for this, Jabe Jabeson, Sergeant Devsey, Dan Lovett, Falco Warrior, Big Bruiser, Ren Dog, Hash, Meldrum, and I Have No Grip. All of them failing to reach the flag. Well, a chaotic race under the lights here tonight. Thank you very much for joining us on Twitch and TikTok. My name has been JP. Alongside me has been Lewis. Once again, thank you very much for watching. And from us to you, take care.